We're going live.
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Welcome to another episode of To Watch, our Star Trek Next Generation podcast. We're here just exploring some other cultures, maybe getting excommunicated. You know, anything could happen.
Meow.
It's me, Xander, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Becca and Jake.
It's me,
hello.
Becca.
It's me, Jake. Acting co-hosts.
Mm-hmm. Acting co-hosts.
I'm so glad that the Klingons and the Federation do exchange programs. It's pretty great. And this is a direct, they even say it in the beginning of the episode, this is like a direct response to when Riker went on the, was it the Pach?
Yeah.
Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah.
I just know it's P-A noise is what I remember.
Good phlegm.
G-H,
Good
okay.
phlegm. Good use of phlegm.
No, it's funny because I got the feeling very much, being a person who studied abroad, Riker was very much the person who studied abroad one semester and then knows everything and has to share with everyone that they...
That guy.
I was aboard a Klingon... This is how Klingons do it. I know. I was there.
Oh, boy. So annoying. Do you think they were sitting around the writer's room and just said, I don't know... Oh, remember when we did that exchange with Riker on the Klingon ship? We could just do the other one.
Yeah. But I just like that that was the initial excuse, and we were going along for the ride of just okay, here, we'll see how this goes. And then there was a twist.
Oh, so many twists.
Mm-hmm.
The depth of this one was great. It didn't feel like just a response to that. It felt like they were trying to do a whole cultural story and also like a character change for Worf, which we'll get into. But I will say that Memory Alpha's got a little bit of info on this, and that this story began life as two different scripts, actually. One about...
Hold on, you haven't even given the synopsis for the people who've never seen Star Trek and will never watch it, but just like to learn about it through this podcast.
Fair point, Becca. That's right. It's Sins of the Father, where Worf is plunged headfirst into the politics of the Klingon Empire when his deceased father is accused of treason.
That's just dirty. You can't accuse dead people of stuff. I mean, just let them be dead. Actually, I take this back. Yeah, you can. Take down the statues.
I was gonna say, that hot take lasted 0.7 seconds.
I like to always have a super hot take, even if I immediately reverse it.
Just see how it feels. Oops, nope, that's wrong.
Try that on. Felt bad.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah, we do need to litigate the past sometimes, especially if it's relevant to our present. And this one, I guess, kind of is for the Klingon Empire because they're worried about the Romulans, who they're always at hostilities for. But the Klingons are more concerned about people's honor, which is really what this episode's all about.
Turns out the Klingons are more concerned about the truth getting out.
I feel a lot of analogies to Liz Cheney because the news today was she got ousted as number 3 in the House, and I haven't made it political in a while, so
sure, just gotta.
So that's
again,
it. It's just reference.
No, it's like, what is the point of honor and relitigating the past? Because it matters.
Yeah.
Well, she also is actually an example of someone who's kind of sacrificing themselves for their empire in some ways, right? Because she wants to address the truth, but actually I guess she doesn't because she's not burying the truth, which is what Worf's doing, right?
Yeah, it's quite the opposite. She decided not to play along with the big lie, and so she's being ousted, but Worf decides to play along with the big lie. And also gets ousted.
Yeah, but he's doing it for the betterment of his empire, right? So it's a self-sacrifice choice that he makes for, I guess, what he considers his people.
And they're both potentially preventing civil war, or at least attempting to.
Let's start at the beginning, though. This begins well before we even know we're going to have an honor conflict because it's the exchange program. As we mentioned, Riker's been there before, and now it's the Klingons' turn to share somebody, and we get Commander Kurn.
It's very similar to my last name. My husband's last name.
Yeah, Kurn.
Yeah, Kurn. Just the one.
Yes, we will have 2 children named Kurn and Worf.
There's always just great harsh Klingon names.
One syllable, easy to remember.
Yep.
Nobody can nickname you something you don't like.
Worfy?
Oh, that sounds like
Worfy's
a challenge. Worfy.
They can't shorten it in a way you find unappealing. They can lengthen it.
I think you could just add one letter and make people sound silly, though. Like, if it was Kern, I would just call him Klern. and I think that would make the most sense.
Okay, but that's not a nickname. That's just you being obnoxious.
Or like add an R to the end of Worf. It's like Worfle. Like that's all you need to do.
Worfle.
An L?
Klern. Oh, Worfle.
Just put an
Worfer.
L in anything
Worfer?
and it sounds dumb. Backle. Jalake.
Kern is played by Tony Todd. I don't know if you
Alexander.
That's my name.
I joke. The L works there. The L works.
Yeah.
The exception to the rule.
Kern is played by Tony Todd. I don't know if you recognize Tony Todd. He's also known as the Candyman from the Candyman series.
Oh.
No? Anybody?
Tony Todd?
Yeah, the Candyman?
You are so
amazing
intrigued
actor.
without knowing that it's like a classic horror
Is it a
film.
horror?
From the
Yeah,
80s.
okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Say his name in the mirror, I think 3 times, and he'll
So
appear
it's
and murder
Bloody
you.
Mary.
Oh,
But...
shit.
A little bit, but Candyman. But this guy,
Candyman.
but Tony Todd.
I've never seen
have we said it?
Candyman. I just
Oh,
know
yeah.
of it.
Have said
Classic.
Candyman at least 3 times now.
But I guess we are looking in a digital
A mirror. Right?
I'm not. I'm minimized.
Oh, right.
Right. Well, I'm
Oh,
on a
yeah.
blue screen, so he could appear behind me.
Any
Through the
moment.
magic of.
I
Don't-
was entranced by Tony Todd. I really liked Kern, even though he comes on board. First of all, this is 2 different episodes in one.
Yeah,
You think it's
yeah.
going to be one kind of episode that's about the culture clash of having a Klingon who assumes Riker's position, and Riker has to step down and just like follow everybody around, but like doesn't have a rank for the
Yeah.
first half of the episode. But Tony Todd rocks playing
Yep.
Kern.
Yeah.
He's just so in charge, and he's so commanding. His presence is very felt on screen, and I like the casting. No
Yes.
wonder he got Candyman.
The writers did a good job of making him an ally to the viewer and not just an enemy right away, because he's harsh and he's Klingon and he dismisses Riker in the first instant he meets him, and we're supposed to like be wary of him. But he also starts off with this speech where he's somewhat condescending, but he's also like, I know all the Starfleet regulations and we're going to obey them to a T.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay, this guy's going to do his job.
It's almost like, wow, we were so out of line and nobody pointed it
Yeah.
out. Things are lax here. Riker
It's
and
true.
Picard don't give an F. They're just way too in touch with their feelings, and this ship is all over the place. So,
And
maybe
you
there's
can-
something there.
Tell that Picard has been on other sort of tightly run ships because he's like, well, let's see how they do. Well, it's pretty lax because we're having a good time, but let's see
Yeah, he's
what
cool with it
happens.
though. He,
Yeah.
honors the exchange program and the purpose of it, which is cultural enlightenment. Riker,
Yeah.
not so much.
Yeah.
Well, I like your point too, Xander, about like Picard empowers him further too, because like when Kern's giving his speech, which feels a little braggadocious, because really Starfleet officers don't need this speech, right? But it feels like a Klingon thing that he would do to assert his dominance on the bridge. But he says all the things that he'll do under his command, but then he pauses and says, as long as that's okay with you, Captain. And
Right.
Picard says that's totally fine, or he says absolutely, or whatever he says, but he doesn't give like a knowing smirk to Riker, or he
Right.
doesn't like look to the camera. Well, he wouldn't look to the camera. He doesn't
Right.
look off to like show that this is a little bit silly of a speech. He reinforces it.
Taking
He
it
says,
seriously.
yeah, that's a great
That's
choice.
one of the things that we've found with Picard, I think, that's reinforced throughout the episode, and we've seen before in the past, whether he's dealing with Data and issues with androidism, or with Worf and coming to his aid in a Klingon way. Picard takes these problems seriously and believes his crew. And when they say they have a problem, he's not demeaning. And if this person is coming in as first officer, he's taking what they're doing seriously because they're bringing what they can to the table, and that's what's being asked of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then we start to notice the one person he isn't hard on is Worf.
Which I think endears Kern even more to the audience because it's like, okay, he's up to something, or like something's going on here.
Yeah,
And
there's
then-
going to be
Just
a
an
Worf
asshole.
dynamic.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of assumed it's going to be a thing where he calls Worf not Klingon enough. Of course it will be, because Worf's on this wishy-washy ship full of squishy humans.
Well, not only that, like you're right, Becca. That's what they also, the writers, I think, know the audience would assume, because they've
Yes.
seen that storyline played out, and we already know Worf's tropes, right? So they took a turn and they made him super complimentary of Worf.
It's awkward. It doesn't make sense because Worf wouldn't like that. Worf would want to be disciplined like everyone else.
Exactly.
But we learned that Kurn is testing him, right? He's trying to find out how soft he is, or how Klingon he is, I guess I should say.
Or maybe there's some part of, well, we haven't mentioned the big twist yet, but maybe there's some part of the familial relationship that makes him not want to be hard on him. Or maybe it's quite the opposite for Klingons.
One of the thoughts that I had was that Worf was just doing his job so well that there was no critique. Like, he was doing it at a Klingon level and no one else was.
Yeah, but Kurn wouldn't give anyone else a flowery compliment just for doing things right.
Yeah,
right. He's threatening to kill most of the other officers.
Right. Yes, if this were a Klingon ship, you'd be dead.
Yeah. No, at dinner, he 100% did.
But he even wouldn't kill them at dinner.
Well, it's not just dinner, everybody. It's a feast because they have fancy goblets, and they made a whole turkey, which he critiques as a dead bird, which they all admit. Yeah, it's been replicated. It's
good
never alive.
He's like, what did he say? He's like,
I haven't killed anyone at the dinner table or something like that.
It looks like it's been left out in the sun for a while. I'm like, we cook our food. He's like, all right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what Geordi says. Yeah. And then Picard is like, well, if you like raw delicacies, I've been saving up real caviar, not even replicated. And he like grabs a fistful of it and says it's gross, and then is like, oh, thank you. Because he he sees how important it is to Picard.
Mm-hmm. And he also just like slaps it down on the leg of turkey meat.
And Data even goes into explaining that, like, oh, it's like the eggs of a fish. And Picard stops him as if it was going to gross him out. And I was like, no, Picard, let him say the thing. Yeah. It's going to make it more appetizing for him.
Let him
give all the juicy details.
Yeah. Whatever repels Becca will definitely work for Kurn.
Mm-hmm. Especially because your main course
caviar?
here was...
Yes, I love caviar.
No, I don't think I actually have had caviar.
I love...
It's little fish eggies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Seafood.
It's too bland for Klingon taste.
Which is funny because it's salty.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess he needs it to be saltier because blood.
Well, I think that's the insult,
right?
Kind of thing.
But then they're eating turkey, which is the driest and most boring of the bird meats, right?
Yeah, turkey's terrible.
I bet you anything. It's because that's what props could get on the day.
Right.
And they're like, we need a leg of meat. What kind of meat? I don't know. They get the turkey leg from the Renaissance fair.
Big and feasty and celebratory, but at the same time, it should never be eaten. It's a terrible thing to eat. No one should ever do it. Why, if you had a replicator?
Hold on.
If you had a replicator and you could make anything, you'd make turkey?
That is true. On the priority level, turkey would be
Hold on. What's the alternative then, Becca? What would be the thing that you would present to a Klingon as the delicacy of humans?
That's a good question.
Turducken wrapped in bacon.
Okay. Just all the meat.
Pizza. Always pizza for every meal.
I think that sushi would have been the best call. It's raw.
Yeah, raw.
And meat. Yeah.
And he can put wasabi on it and really go to town on whatever he needs.
Klingons are into raw gaminess. So like a liver that is just barely seared.
Oh, you could have pate.
Yeah, pate.
Yeah.
All the things that I will never eat. I do not like.
Oh, pate's good.
I can't do too experimental of foods. Especially
good liver
meaty
and
foods.
onions.
Boy, Xander, I think we need a cultural exchange for food on this podcast.
I would love that.
Teach us your ways.
Cool, good try. I will puke on your fancy artisan meal. Give me
that's content.
Pizza.
That's all we need.
Oh my goodness! When we could travel, I was going to France and going to a restaurant there. You get amazing French food because it's just food there. But they brought out
French food is just called food.
But they brought out these roasted duck hearts, and they were incredible. They were like little tiny like fillet steaks that were just so good.
Hearts.
Yeah, and I'd never felt more like a Klingon, just like stabbing duck hearts at the table.
Well, any heart beside an artichoke heart feels like.
I'll do artichoke. I'm not a meat and potatoes girl. I love all the vegetables, but because I was vegetarian for 10 years, I think in my formative years, I just didn't acquire a taste for anything that feels too meaty. If there isn't a Morningstar imitation product of it, I can't do it.
Yeah, I've got so many stories.
I'm not sure I'm gonna eat it. Like the heart feels. What was that like? Was it tender?
Yes, especially because the way that it was prepared, it was glorious and amazing. And I don't agree with the practice of creating foie gras, but boy, is it delicious.
Well, those ducks were all criminals anyway, right?
They were. They deserved whatever happened to them to make this.
That's true.
No, but some of the more adventurous stuff, like I love trying food. I will try anything once. When I was living in Japan, we were visiting a friend of mine in Kumamoto, and one of the delicacies there is a type of sashimi, just the raw meat, called basashi, which is actually raw horse meat. And so it was something definitely to try. It was not great. I did not care for it, but it was different.
Man, horse.
Yeah.
I would eat raw human meat, and that's where I draw the line on either side of it.
Okay,
but only
what part
if it
of
was
the human. Like a cheek?
It would have to be fueled by like revenge.
Not
like
not need or
emotional
survival. Revenge is your priority.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm glad the one contingency you planned for is vengeance.
Cannibalism.
Yeah, what will push you into cannibalism is the hate in your heart.
Frustration. Political differences.
All right, listeners, that's a warning. That's all that is.
All I'm saying is Liz Cheney's safe for now. Not on her voting record, which is heinous.
So I'm mixed about keeping in a threat to an elected official, but knowing that you're threatening to eat her, I feel like it's safe.
Oh, no. I don't know.
Back to the Klingons.
And we've been listening to your podcast, and you're gonna have to come with us.
And you just
can
go
be on the menu to Klingon.
Anyway, back to the episode.
Yeah.
This is what happens when I minimize the camera.
Yeah. Anything
now we
can
know. The thing is Becca, you're right. This does feel like 2 episodes because it kind of actually is. The story began life as 2 different scripts. This is according to Memory Alpha. One where Worf's father was accused of treason, and another one where Worf's brother came on the Enterprise. They took the 2.
The 2 disparate ones.
Well, right. Well,
then there was a third script that came up with on the day of the
which
exchange
you're
program.
referring to the exchange program. I mean, honestly, that's really just the first 5 minutes of this episode.
Is the
really
excuse for him to be there?
Yeah, it's really setting up his presence and his authority, right? And also the dichotomy that when he becomes Worf's Chadish, thank you, that he is subservient to him, which is a flip from where he was, right? So they combined it into one script, which is, I think, a great idea. And actually, I kind of like that there's different elements of this story. Instead of us just writing this honor thing the whole time, it kind of made everything a little bit more dramatic, and it gave us multiple reveals, which was fun.
I am delighted when I am surprised, because like you said, they are playing with the audience now. They know what we are going to think when they show us something. And if they can surprise me, ooh, what a delight.
Honestly, maybe one of the biggest surprises I've ever felt watching the show, of a twist that I didn't see coming or that didn't feel predictable. I mean, it does in the context of the whole episode and how they go in front of the Klingon Council having to defend his father's honor. But I was so surprised when he says, "Big brother."
And there was a legit dun 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 zoom in and everything.
It was great. And it only was revealed when Worf comes to confront him one-on-one and say, "Hey, seems like Can I speak out of turn? Seems like you have beef with me. Can we talk about it?" And then as soon as Worf shows the impulse to fight, that's when he's like, "There's my brother." It's pretty cool.
Becca, when I watched that
Flips the
moment,
table.
when I watched that moment, I literally turned as if you were there, and I wanted to know what your reaction was. But you were not physically with me. I had that impulse. I'm like, I want to know what Becca thought as soon as the brother line came.
It's so sweet. I didn't think about this in context, but really subliminally it was working on me because I just called each of my sisters and talked to them for 30 minutes.
Oh, there you go. Call your family.
Yeah. And Lisa, you're way behind on listening to this podcast.
Oh, call out.
When she hears this in 2023, she's going to be so upset.
This is who reports you about Liz Cheney.
No, she would never, because she'd eat her. I mean, cut it out, do what you must. But YouTube's getting what they get.
Yeah, YouTube's going to get this anyway. The thing is like that whole reveal happens at the end of Act 1. So like we still got a whole lot of story to get through.
Yeah.
We learned that Worf's father, who died at Khitomer, turns out as being accused of treason. And at this point of the story, we actually don't know the specifics of it yet. We're just told that, the sins of the father weigh on the son, right? So Worf goes to Picard and says, I have to go and address this, and I want your permission to do so.
Our whole legal system is completely fucked.
Smooth.
It's real bullshit. I'm sorry. I do something, and then all of my children and my children's children, they're going to pay the price.
He says something like 7 generations or something
7
like that.
generations. Yeah, that is what he said. There's also a moment here where we learn the interesting part of why Worf didn't know he had a brother, that Kurn was 1 year old when the parents and Worf left for the Khitomer outpost, which the father may have had some information that there was going to be a traitor there, because supposedly, we find out much later, his father was following a hunch of a traitor to the Khitomer outpost. But they never returned, which is super shady. How come nobody ever told this kid that his brother was still alive? I mean,
because of
how old was Worf?
Because of House Duras.
Damn you, Duras.
The true traitors.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I was surprised they didn't really bring up at all was that this incident at Khitomer creates the Khitomer Accords, which is the peace treaty between the Federation and the Klingons. So this is really like the hinging historical moment that, and we've brought this up before with
time travel
in like alternate dimensions and stuff like that, but
because of the episode where Guinan was the only one that knew that because the Khitomer was the Federation ship never made it there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Was that the Khitomer outpost they were defending? I didn't remember that part of it. Yeah. Yesterday's Enterprise was the name of that.
Exactly. Yeah, and so this leads to the Khitomer Accords, which is the peace treaty.
It's pretty sweet.
And
pretty
so
sweet tie-in.
I also really liked the scene where Worf asked Picard for permission, and there's this really slow push-in on both of them at different points when Worf is explaining how this works for him, and that it's important to him to speak for his family and address their identity in front of the council. And when he asks Picard if he can go, and Picard says no because you represent, or does he say no?
Not without me.
Not without me, right? Yeah. Right? Yeah, he's like, do I have your permission to go by myself or something like that? He words it in a way that Picard can say no, but yes, right?
Yeah.
But I loved that moment, which is like, you are a member of the ship, and so you're representing us, and I could think that you would want someone there by your side.
Yeah, the captain by your side.
Also, I need to be there to pull the ripcord in case you're doing stupid. Sacrifice yourself, and I need to say, sorry, not doing that today.
Don't do it. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. So what's stupid, either if it was Worf's dad or some other person who was a traitor and got killed in the Khitomer massacre, but was also the one who gave the information to the Romulans. It's stupid allegedly. Either way. Why would you get yourself killed? I mean, just to be accused of wait, I'm sorry, I'm guilty of killing myself?
He was a traitor because he helped the attack happen, but he died in the attack. Yeah, that's what the accusation is. The whole thing too with the sins of the father. That's a human culture thing. This is a critique on honor, right? Because ancestral sin, that's in a lot of cultures, ours included.
They even go further than that. And then, what does your honor even mean if it's fake and if it's performative?
Right.
Nothing Republicans in Congress.
So yeah, honor as a concept is really what drives the Klingons, and so it's so important a currency in their culture that these kind of crazy things happen. So we've called a man who wasn't even who survived and wasn't involved in it at all there to answer for the crimes of someone else.
Bullshit.
It was bullshit, which we find out.
Oh yeah.
Well, very true. So we get to the home planet of the Klingons. What's it called? Karos?
Kronos,
thank you.
Oh, well, before that, the Sons of Moog got a chat about Tradish.
Right.
And the procedure.
Tradish. Yeah.
Which Worf's like, I know, you don't have to tell me. Yes, but he's telling the audience.
Right.
Oh, you can keep talking.
You can keep going.
And I liked that moment where Worf lays out the chain of command that on this ship, you are posing as my commander. Therefore, I will respect your chain of command. But in council chambers, you are my Tradish, and you will listen to me.
That's all foreshadowing for when he gets to snap back at Picard.
Yeah.
Which is like a long time coming.
Shut up, Tradish.
Yeah.
He's been waiting for that for a while.
Right.
Then we go down to the planet. Get in there. Oh, yeah. You talk about the sweet cityscape?
Oh yeah, the painting, that matte painting.
I'm so glad you mentioned it. I was going to, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm glad they brought it up. Yeah, look at that matte painting, and there's like good animation and like flashing thunder and lightning in the background.
All the buildings are these stone structures that have 3 tiers and look like cakes, and all have pink
or a pagoda style. Yeah,
pagodas. Yeah. So the Klingon symbol. It's like kind of an inversion of the Federation symbol. It's a wavy triangle with the point going up.
Yeah, the chevron, but it's like tilted.
It's triangular in a way, or starish a little bit. Yeah, I guess I never put that together either. I see that. Yeah.
You just need an outsider coming in with fresh eyeballs.
It's true.
Well, I mean, I admittedly never saw any of these buildings as cake either, but I get it.
That's
If it has 3 tiers, it's cake to me. I'll eat it. I'll eat it all. I love cake.
So Worf and Kurn, along with actually Picard and Riker, show up to the council, and they face the accusations. And
I am Jean-Luc Picard of the USS Enterprise, and I'll go yell because it seems like that's what we do here.
Well, also, the whole sound was rough in there because the ADR was terrible.
Oh, I didn't notice it that bad.
Worf's first couple of lines like barely lined up. I was like, what are you doing?
Must be bad at Burbank Airport.
I bet they had...
It was probably a huge echo.
I bet that because those ceilings were really tall. I bet it was like that soundstage was really echoey or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, the good point about Picard though is like, he's yelling a lot. So I was like, from an acting standpoint, you have more power when you don't yell, right? But this is also Picard in a different culture, and it feels like he has to exert his stature in some way, right? Yeah. And I guess that's it.
Especially because you assume that with the universal translator going, that Picard is actually speaking Klingon, and so he's giving that emphasis type of thing.
Really? Because they were speaking Klingon at certain points in this episode, and I was like, the weird choice that they didn't explain because they're speaking English or whatever you call English.
Yeah, the common or whatever.
Common tongue. Yeah.
There's always been that thing, like if you hear a word in another language that it was the speaker's choice, there's maybe no translation for it, or they're placing emphasis by like going past the translator.
They're providing their own subtitled.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I don't know that they've explained this universal translator thing yet, but I like that you're giving it explanation that maybe they put on afterwards.
Yeah. This is like a fan theory that comes on later, right?
Exactly.
I don't think no one envisioned that when they were writing this episode, which is why they pepper in Klingon and stuff like that. But like we have to again, we've talked about this with like the Prime Directive people. It's like every alien speaks English. We just have to forgive the TV part of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of the Klingon, though, with this Chancellor, you have the lowest energy Qapla' that I have ever seen. Now, when you go out to like Star Trek conventions, which we can do now, a common greeting among the Klingons will be to say Qapla', and you're greeting each other, and it's very rough and friendly and bright, and he just went Qapla', and it was so deadpan and like low energy. I'd never heard it like that. Yeah.
Well, that's probably because he's too fat.
He's too fat. We've heard it from the witness. He is
multiple times. 40% of her lines are about his weight.
Yeah. So Duras is this council member that is the one that originally dug up this old history and is blaming Worf's daddy for being the one that killed his father at the big old showdown at the massacre. But Duras slaps Worf and says, "You and your father are traitors because you leaked the security codes to the Romulans." That slap. Oh, it's important. It's coming back.
Yeah.
And then that's their whole court proceeding. They're like, okay, cool, time for Mechpa. See you in a bit.
Yep.
That
concludes the Mechpa, yeah.
Yeah, recess and deliberation, and then reading the jury's announcement is the Mechpa part. Worf didn't even get to speak except to say, hey, I challenge that he called my father a traitor. That's not true. Yep. They didn't give him a speechy time. I mean, he'll get it later, but it doesn't seem to be part of their
it's
justice
also like
system.
It's a bit of a show trial, right? It's like, not all justice systems are equal too, and I really doubt the Klingons have a great justice system, considering like they generally in their chain of command, if someone offers them a suggestion, the officer has permission to kill them. So I'm not sure how often everybody gets their say and their defense.
Remind me, because I don't remember if this is just from my own rewatches or if we've had this. Have we seen the Klingon lawyer episode already? Where
No.
Okay, then never mind. We will see that eventually.
I just love the idea that it's like an 80s sitcom, but in New York, but played by a Klingon who's just trying to live a normal life.
Klingon lawyer.
Yeah,
that was the spinoff show.
I cannot wait for this episode.
Missed an opportunity with.
Something to look forward to. Also, this is just the first of several mentions of House Duras. This will not be the end.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. This whole thing sets up a continuity, actually, and a storyline. And I mean, as we learned as we get through the episode, this kind of changes Worf's identity a little bit, right?
And his relation to the Klingon Empire.
Right. That makes sense.
Go ahead.
I just want to talk about Compaq some more.
Okay.
You go ahead.
Okay. Well, what I was gonna say was, I just had a quote, and my quote's too long, and I'm just trying to pare it down here.
I can't see you, so I don't know what was happening.
Oh, it's just vamping.
Oh, here it is. Okay. So the producers said that they made a big decision with the way the show ended, which, as we talked about, like there were so many twists, and it came up again, which is that Picard or Worf is accused of this, and it turns out there was another survivor of the Khitomer massacre, and it was his nursemaid. His nanny, right? And
sure.
And Picard finds her in the old city and tries to convince her to come with him to speak on Worf's family's behalf, Mog's behalf, I guess.
I am dead, a long time dead.
So we find out not only was his brother, but also the nursemaid were under like the witness protection program and have reinvented themselves as new people to move on.
So I wonder if the family, like, this is new information though, that there was a traitor in the first place based on recovering a Romulan ship. So
that's true.
At the time, that's kind of a plot hole that it was unexplained why Worf was never notified or never, went to find out what happened to his little brother and his nurse.
Also, it was weird that she knew that Picard was a Chadish, but knew none of the details about the trial that he was a Chadish for.
So I feel like she kind of did, but they just didn't go into it. I feel like it's kind of like on the front page of the Kronos Chronicle. Everybody knows about it, right?
If you see a human captain walking around, he's the Chadish. He's bald, draws a weapon very slowly. So if you sneak up on him, just give him a chance.
Look at his little smooth head with no ridges.
Yeah.
So Picard was warned. Well, there's a lot that we skipped over. I mean, Hearn gets stabbed.
There's a lot in this episode.
Well, there really is. As I'm looking through it, I'm like, I can't summarize this. There's so many interesting things, and even as Becca pointed out, like we did a whole investigation of the logs to find out. Oh yeah, there was a traitor in the first place.
Yeah,
and it looks like it was Mog because they used his security code to transmit the data.
And so Duras has a bunch of like assassins that just go around like attacking people.
Okay, yeah, we even skipped the fact that like Picard is the Chadish after Duras or after.
I don't know what it is. We you're referring to, but yeah, I'll allow it.
Sorry.
I was trying to talk about the first Kim Peck is the old wise councilman that was super calm and chill and didn't make any sense for a Klingon to even behave this way. But sure, okay, I guess there can be different ways that Klingons behave. Sure,
exactly.
But he tells Worf to run away, and that's how Worf knows something is weird. Like, oh, okay, you thought because I'm in the Federation, I wasn't going to come down and defend my father. So there's some shady shit going on here, and Duras is in on it, and Councilman Kim Peck is in it on it. Worf is getting to the bottom of it, and Picard is going to go back to the ship and demand that Data and Geordi and Beverly are all split up finding facts. Get those facts.
Well, and this really warms you up to Kim Peck in a way that's like, okay, he's trying to look out for Worf, but it also plants this like red herring of like, he seems guilty now. Like, what is he trying to hide? Is he the traitor or what's going on? I don't think it directly pointed to Duras as being the one, but there was something.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It definitely shows there's intrigue going on, right?
Yeah.
It's not as simple as it seems, which is so great. This episode is constantly doing that.
He's equally as guilty as Duras. Duras is not responsible for his father's crimes, but he is responsible for covering them up just as much as Kim Peck is. So Kim Peck and Duras both deserve a slap on the face.
Exactly. Maybe a backhand.
Becca approved slap on the face.
Yeah. Becca approved backhand.
Yeah, Kim Peck's motivation seemed more out of like the bureaucracy of it. Like he just didn't want the system to crumble and fall apart, and thought this would be an easy fix that didn't involve anyone, and thought no one would get hurt.
Well, and he's kind of right, except for Worf being hurt, but whatever. Yeah. He doesn't care about some
Worf's
Federation
feelings.
Noodle. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, the needs of the many versus the needs of one.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah.
But
they had that written on their banners.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And Star Trek.
I don't think that for me those things are distinguishable as one being more honorable than the other. I think Duras and Kim Peck both suck, and he's still fat.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I think that when you distill these sort of tropes of these alien species down, like Vulcans are logical and Klingons are aggressive and have honor, then the ultimate thing is, from a human perspective, questioning what does that mean? Okay, you value logic. How does that apply, and how are humans better? Okay, Klingons, you value honor, but how does that apply to me and my being a human, and how is our way of life better? And it's a sort of weird way to prove it.
And those aspects that you just mentioned of those species are also, generalizations and stereotypes of those cultures. They are rooted in truth because, Vulcans do value logic, right? But as Becca mentioned of like, oh, this guy's not acting like a standard Klingon. It's great that they have that variety. Like they don't all address honor the same way. And like at the end of the episode, I was like, these guys aren't making a very honorable call. They should smack Duras down because it doesn't matter how powerful his house is. He brought dishonor to the Empire with what he did. But politics outweighs it, I guess,
Yeah. We don't know how much of the structure of the civilization is under Duras, and then they'd have to stay under society, and you couldn't just exile this one person.
Right.
Without
it's too important to him to keep
creating a big rift.
Just to expand on that point too, Jake, I know we've touched on it a bit, but that the examples of the species that we would run into just happen to be either militaristic or whatever because they're crews of starships. It's seldom that we go to Vulcan or we go to Kronos to see them in there, and it's great that we're exploring that. And that the writers are giving Klingons more personality than just the 2D traits.
Yeah,
especially as a leader there. That's true. Well, something else about Klingon honor. Kern still plays, in part 2 of the episode, he still plays a role before being stabbed, which is he has to deal with this whole, do I admit that I am also son of Morg, or don't I, because that is what Worf ordered him to not do so that he could, one, have his honor intact, two, not be executed.
Right. One thing that we haven't explained in our recap is the fact that he goes by a different name. He's son of Lore?
But he doesn't say it very convincingly on the day.
Son of Lore.
Wink, wink, wink.
Looks at his hand to see what he wrote down.
It's a smudged M.
Because he doesn't. identify as Worf's brother because he was orphaned, and we didn't. Most of the Klingons didn't even know Worf had a brother, right?
Exactly.
There was no survivors.
Yeah, that witness protection type of thing.
Right. So his honor is Worf's honor, is Dad's honor, is the whole family's honor if it turns out that's a traitor. So that's the choice he has to make.
Yeah.
There's so much that goes on in this episode, and I was never overwhelmed. I was pleasantly engaged through most of it.
It was really well done.
They managed to sort of work in the rest of the crew, too, because this was very guest star heavy. There was a ton of Klingons, a ton of lines and stuff like that. But because they had that beginning section, we got to involve Wesley and Geordi and Data and Riker. It was a great
good
episode.
Point.
And Crusher.
Yeah, she did a lot of the investigating, too.
Troy was there sometimes.
She made awkward dinner conversation and laughed awkwardly when he said he wished he could kill Riker.
Right.
So that there's that fun bit.
That was a weird laugh. He just threatened your Imzadi, and you just giggle.
A meme from...
She thought it was a joke.
Yeah, there was a meme from Veep where it's Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and she's just laughing, and she goes, what the fuck? That's what that was.
And then we mentioned that Picard goes and finds the nurse, the eyewitness, and you mentioned a little about his slow draw. I think this is Picard's, the first that I remember, his first fight scene.
And I think that...
He's been attacked.
On
the bridge.
On the bridge.
Yeah.
Thrown. But I believe Patrick Stewart would have done his own stunts, and it looks like it.
I don't think. I don't think. A couple of the shots were for sure, especially when he took one on the chin. Which honestly, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but his bruise was on the other side of his face.
Oh, really?
Later on, he gets hit here, and then his bruise is over here. He also had some rosy cheeks in this episode. They put a lot of blush on him, which I thought was a fun contrast on the dark lighting of the Klingon worlds.
They were saying, because Kronos is supposed to be super hot. So I wonder if that was them trying to do that. Yeah.
Interesting.
But it just didn't translate.
Boy, they wear a lot of hot leather for such a temperate
because they're Klingons.
Okay.
That fight scene was brutal too. He stabs a Klingon and then almost gets himself stabbed before he is rescued, right? Yeah. And that's the turning point for
by the old woman Celeste.
Yeah, by Celeste, right? That's the turning point for Celeste.
Throwing a diktat.
And she sees that, I guess you do. What does she even say? I know you're the child to
You're brave. She says, you're brave.
That's it.
I'm impressed. You came here. It was hard. You almost died. Okay. And he's like, okay, so come back with me.
You're on board?
I know. Because she didn't actually know anything, which was a clever Picard move. He always finds the solution even when there's no solution to be found, which was bring Celeste, this nurse eyewitness, back because, as he says, it may shake loose the truth, which it did, and which was great because immediately she walks in and Kempek goes, "You would kill an old woman to cover your dishonor to Duras," and it's like, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks, Celeste. You're done.
Way to
here.
hold your cards, team. Right? Wow, it's crumbled instantly.
Yeah. Well, not only that, we see a great acting choice from her because when she comes out, it's a different demeanor altogether. She's in battle mode, and we see her calmly say "Oh, this is Celeste. This is not the identity that she had assumed as this fragile old woman that doesn't know anything." Once she sees that his life is in danger and he's put his life on the line, she's like, okay. And you see this sort of honor, that's what honor is.
She must have had such a sad life. I mean, why was she claiming to be a dead person for so long?
Oh, no.
Sad for 20 years.
That was her identity. She didn't want to... Yeah,
she was trying to be a meek little normal citizen to blend in so as not to draw attention.
Celeste, the warrior queen.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll see continuing adventures of Celeste. Yeah.
Yeah. On Klingon Lawyer.
Well, so as you mentioned, yes, the jig is kind of up. We scoot the council away. We go to the private quarters where all is suddenly revealed, and Picard makes the point to the Klingons. He's like, you have to let Worf off of this charge because you now know the truth, and it's been admitted. You admitted it, and then it's revealed that the Empire, the council might crumble if this very powerful house is shown to have been traitors.
Yeah.
And so we're left with this new dilemma. Like with 5 minutes left in the episode, I think we've got it resolved. It's like, no, we're not escape hatching out of this and just proving him wrong and another episode of Klingon Lawyer is done. Like, it's not going to be that clean. We're going to change things. And so Worf makes this choice to like, okay, I will take this guilt sentence, but I'm not going to accept death, but I'll accept something comparable. So this is essentially admitting it's admitting guilt, but also like what, separating yourself from Klingon society. What does this mean?
Being exiled, essentially.
Okay,
but not before turning to Duras and saying, "You are the son of a traitor." Backhand. The moment we were all waiting for. Okay, so I'm ready now.
Satisfying.
Yeah.
But I like, Jake, you had said earlier that the writers had smushed these episodes together and they just didn't know how to end it. But then the choreographer was like, I have an idea.
Forever.
You haven't used me for 3 seasons, but please just give me a spin and a hand movement, and I'll show you how worthwhile my position is.
Man, solid hand movement, though.
Yeah.
You know? Especially when Kern does it so reluctantly. Really
it has
changed.
meaning.
Yeah.
There's intention behind the motion.
Such intention.
So Worf is, I guess,
dance he loses the
discommendated, and he is he will leave. I guess he won't identify as Klingon in the same way, but we'll see what that means in future episodes, and we actually will. This will get readdressed in some ways, I know, in the future.
Yes,
and these characters will come back, and we will see more of the Klingon Empire in this way. I loved this episode. They did so much so quickly without it being too much. Too quickly.
Yeah, well, no, I forgot. Oh, I know. Who's gonna be my Chadish?
Ooh.
Picard's line too, by the way, when Worf's like, "Hey, don't go out there," and Picard goes, "Hey, I'm your Chadish,"
and he said, "Hey." That was so weird.
And it was so soft.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I got your back, baby.
Right.
Yeah. Love it. What did she even do? I mean, I know we're at the end of the episode, but like it's like your second, it's your champion. Yeah. But
if you like bust your ankle right before the duel, you tap them in and then they fight for you.
Yeah,
also kind of lawyer.
This is either execution
Paralegal?
or no execution. Yeah. So Paralegal. The Chadish is just like, hey, what's up? I'm just gonna be here and hold a weapon. No big deal.
Klingon lawyer, and then the spin-off is bald paralegal.
Smooth head paralegal.
Smooth head paralegal. There it is. That's it.
Coming this fall to CBS.
Oh man, I would watch that.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait for the next episode, which is great. Didn't pull it up.
Jesus, Jake. Jesus. I'm just filling time.
Execute.
I thought you're filling time.
Yeah, for the YouTubes.
Just exclaiming Jesus.
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 So entertained.
Collapsed.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for next week's episode, which is Allegiance, where Captain Picard and 3 others are abducted and imprisoned by an unknown force and replaced by duplicates.
Ooh, we've got a body snatcher episode.
Is it Q? It's probably Q.
We'll find out next week, and let's head there how Kern would have us head there.
It's nanites. It's nanites.
Exterminate.
Execute.
Oh, it's execute. That's the dollar.
Exterminate those orders. Bye, friends.
Bye.